know what order we, I don't know what order we started in, but I'm wondering, since I am pretty close to needing to wash her out, I'm wondering if maybe I could go first. Or did you want to go first?
No, that's fine. Do you want to mention your auction item? And
oh yeah,
those couple of little things we'll do real fast.
okay. This is my auction. This is my auction item. This is the Connemara Kitchen Irish whiskey tea. It does not have whiskey in it, just so you know. It's non-alcoholic, but it actually comes directly from Ireland with the customs tag and everything. So I ordered the Connemara Kitchen Irish breakfast tea from Ireland, and they actually sent me a case of the whiskey tea by mistake. So it's pretty delicious. It's a black tea, and it has a it says the Connemara Kitchen brings you this smooth, pure leaf tea marinated in an Irish whiskey flavor. It does not taste like ashtray or fireplace. And it is just kind of almost, it just has a little bit of more sweetness to it than like a traditional black tea. So it's not, it doesn't taste like whiskey. It just tastes very smooth, and it just has this little sweetness to it. So anyway, this is $15 to buy. So whatever the auction items want, I mean, whatever anybody wants to bid for it.
I'll go for 10. I'll go 10.
Okay.
Maybe that'll help my cough.
Anybody else? And it's also, let's see, where's the camera? I don't know if I can. There, January 2024. So it's fresh.
Great.
It's completely sealed too. So it's brand new. I ended up with 12 of them. So I don't need 12.
Are they packets or loose leaf?
Yeah, they're in individual tea bags.
Tea bags. Okay.
And they don't have tags. Remember, they don't have strings.
Right.
Strings and tags. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
And there's 50 tea bags in here.
So, any other bids?
So I'm surprised, you guys.
Not everybody drinks tea.
What?
Well, then
wait, what? Who said that? We can no longer be friends. All right. Okay, Laura, we'll get it to you.
Thanks.
All right. Awesome. I'm sure you'll love it.
I'm sure I will. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then one more thing before Dawnette starts is, well, I guess two. The Historical Society finally got back to me this week, and they want us to do Farm Fest. So if anybody would like to volunteer to do that next weekend on Saturday, that would be great.
Oh, wow. That's this coming weekend?
Yeah.
That was fast.
So Sally and I we have already volunteered to do that, but having a couple other people to, join us would be great. It's only from 10 to 4. So it feels like all day, but it's not really.
Yeah. And I'll pop in for a little while in the morning, but I have stuff that afternoon. So think about it. Just let us know at the end of the meeting if you want to volunteer to help there at Farm Fest.
And what's the location again?
It's at the Historical Society in Minville. So
the museum. It's out of the museum. It's where they're going to have, all the spinners and the big, they'll be plowing out there with the horses and, stuff like that. So
yeah, there's a flyer that went out with the email for them.
Okay.
And then we also have the nominees to announce for the board positions. As it sits right now, it would be myself running as president, Dawnette running as vice president, Laura being the recording secretary, Sally membership secretary. We still have board position number 1 open. And Kim is going to run for board position number 2. So if anybody's interested, we still have 1 open position that there's no nominees for.
I have a question on that. Randy, I have a question. I don't remember saying I was going to be secretary because I thought Kim was back on board.
Deborah.
Kim cannot run again because she's reached her limit, her term limit.
Okay.
So she's not going to be recording secretary no matter what.
Okay, well then that'll be fine, I guess.
I'm
I guess
sorry.
I
thought, I don't know why I thought you were.
well, I probably said that in passing, sort of like if Kim can't do it, I'll help
Yeah.
out, but I didn't know it was going to be a permanent thing.
Okay.
That would be a 2-year assignment, correct?
Right.
Correct.
If
Yeah,
you don't want to be on it, you feel free to say
No,
so.
I can do that.
Okay.
If you're okay with my minutes, if you're okay with my minutes, I can do it.
Okay.
Okay.
Starting, yeah, later. Okay. Starting in June, right? I mean,
Starting
nominations.
in
Oh,
Well,
go ahead.
yeah, technically, I mean, yeah, we've in May, we get put in June, and then really you would start doing minutes in September.
Okay, all right, that is
And-
fine.
And you would also be recording any executive board meeting retreats and the information of that. So anytime we get together, executive meetings and stuff like that too.
All right,
And the flyer, I put the link in the chat, so that has all the nominees listed.
okay. All right.
Okay.
Is it okay to ask we have 2 folks here that I'm not sure who they are. Is it okay to?
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so if you're named Wilson on the screen, I'm not sure if it's Janice, would love to hear if that was you. And then we have a phone number that's dialed in today. Welcome, but would love to know if you're able to tell us who you are, the 503-780, et cetera. Would love to know who you are. And
Could you
The
repeat
phone
that?
number is,
say it one more time.
Julie Cadiga.
Thank you, Julie.
Julie,
Glad you're here. Thank you. Okay, that's all.
and Wilson, did you find out Wilson?
I think there's a Janice Wilson, and so I marked Janice as present, but I'm not sure. I sent a message too, but so if Wilson, if you're able to unmute and just let us know who you are, we would love to say hello.
or
Maybe,
drop it in the chat.
yeah,
Yeah, drop it in the chat too, if you
Yep.
can't unmute.
yeah, I sent a message too, so I'm not sure if you're able to see those, but all right, thank you.
Then we'll get started with Donette's presentation.
Okay, so anybody who has attended Roots Tech understands, especially online, understands what how crazy it is, the offerings that are so there and available to us and that they've provided us free of charge is incredible. But one of the things that I really gravitated towards was preserving for future generations. We're so focused on the stuff that came before us, but we're not really thinking about what's happening to what we're leaving ourselves, what we're leaving for future generations. So one of the things, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I've only done this one other time, so you guys just bear with me. Okay, so then I need to go to here. Let me go to, there we go. Okay, so do you guys see my screen? Is everybody good?
Yes.
Yes, okay, good. Okay, so this is my Roots Tech review. I chose to do a review on preserving best foot forward, because again, it's forward, not back, part 1. And so one of the things that we need to remember that we need to preserve our photo history for future generations. And so today I'm going to be sharing a class from Maureen Taylor, the photo detective. And what I learned from her class was gathering and digitizing tips, what the hang on one second, something is going screwy. Okay, so and so what I so to go back just a little bit, was what I got out of it was that we're all kind of hand to forehead over all the stuff our ancestors left us, deciding what was important to them to preserve their legacies. So getting those tubs and boxes of things that our ancestors had, and it's like, what was important to them? How do I know what was important to them? And so, so we're all kind of doing this thing, with, our hand to our forehead going, what do we do? And I was talking to my uncle just the other day about the 1950 census. And he said, somebody, because I was asking him, where did your parents live? And first the text message was, where did you live in 1950? And I meant to say, where did your parents live in 1950? So his response back to me was, nowhere. So, which was hilarious, I thought, because it was like, oh my gosh, because he wasn't born until 1954. So he wouldn't have been on the census. So, but what I said was, where were they? And he said, honestly, I don't know, because they could have been here, they could have been here, they could have been there. Grandpa did this and that, so he was giving me a whole long list of possible places to look in the 1950 census. But then his follow-up text message said to me was, someone should probably start collecting all of this information about us now, because who would be as honest as our grandparents on the last or future censuses, because of all the conspiracy theories and political stuff happening right now. So that just kind of hit me in the chest. It was like, what do you mean someone? What do you mean? Are you like dropping that in my lap that now I have to figure out where you've been, how many places you've lived? And so it was like, no. So the importance of preserving our own legacy, so our children and grandchildren aren't slapping their own heads. That's kind of that's what I'm going to talk about today, because I just thought that was such a great thing. And so what I learned is about gathering and digitizing, scanning tips, and also the metadata and file naming, storage options. And so who Maureen Taylor is she's a family historian who focuses on photographs, digital albums, and photo restoration platforms. She's been on TV like Good Morning America talking about helping people figure out with hairstyles and clothing choices and props and things in the backgrounds to try and figure out what era they came from. So she's really knowledgeable about old time pictures. She's dedicated to digital preservation and currently works with metadata and how-to for archiving family heirlooms. So she, and understanding what it is and why it's important, and how to name your images so that you can find them again, and helpful storage options for long-term preservation. And so photo negatives, let's see. So what should be digitized? Any physical item that has some family connection, photos, negatives, slides. What about concert or theater tickets, bus passes, or your old Blockbuster video cards? Think any memorable item that you'd only hold on to for a short time, but that places you in your life and the things you've enjoyed. Who has old letters, written stories or poems, received postcards from loved ones? My favorite hand-me-down is my mother's and my grandmother's handwritten recipe cards. What better way to document your employment history or favorite vendors than by digitizing business cards. And as a mom and grandma, my baby's precious hand-painted masterpieces should forever be preserved, even if it embarrasses them later. So scanning tips, making sure that our work is preservation level for generations. Every digitized image should be no less than 600 DPI. That means dots per inch. That should be minimum. Archival preservation level is now 1200 DPI in TIFF format. JPEGs will degrade every time the image is uploaded or downloaded and moved digitally. Think old school floppy disks. They're not even usable anymore. The one tip that was a huge light bulb moment for me was to always scan in color to preserve the tonal variations. Because these files will be larger than a house, you'll want to have an external hard drive to download them to, as well as a cloud storage system for backup. One speaker that I heard a few years ago said that in addition to the cloud, he had 3 jump drives that he would back up to regularly and rotate. One at home, one at his daughter's house, and one in his safety deposit box at the bank. I thought that was a bit overzealous, don't you think? Oh my gosh, I was like, what are you, 3 places, different places? But after witnessing the devastation of the wildfires and the flooding the last couple of years and how so many have lost everything, I now see the importance of offsite storage. So file naming. Scanned file names mean nothing to us, do they? They're just all numbers and letters. Maureen says to implement a system that and stick with it. A simple way is to go back after scanning to change the file names to something that is searchable and easy to find later. Start with the scanning number that will keep the photos sequential, like 123 or 001, 002. Add the name, last name first, underscore first, same as your folders. Then add a date, even if it's just a year, and the location if you know it. You'll want to lightly write the same file name on the back of the photo, small and with a soft lead pencil, like an 8B, which can be easily sharpened in a pencil sharpener. They have like other pencils that like there's an ebony pencil, but that one you have to like old school with a knife and shave off the tip. This just makes it super easy. Now talking about metadata, what is it? Okay, so that was a big one for me. Like, what is metadata? Well, in a nutshell, it's data about data. So adding metadata to images embeds important details into the digital image itself, including copyright notices, author information, dates, locations, and descriptions. Basically, it's what needs to be assigned to all our digital files going forward and adding to what we already have in our computers, phones, and iClouds. It's the who, what, where, when, why. Captions can be a short blurb to a full story detailing the significance of the photograph, the exact or approximate date, who is in the photo with full names, nicknames, maiden names, prefixes, suffixes, etc. Which event album and physical file the photo is stored in. Locations can be as detailed as full street addresses, description of the location. They can be generalized locations such as just a city or state, and keywords that categorize the photo and allow for searching and indexing. Further metadata could include copyright information and ownership and photographer's contact information. It is important to have all this stored in the metadata because it transfers if the image is copied or exported to another file type. It stays with the photo. Data about the photo is always available within any version of any particular image. It's the digital version of our ancestors taking the time to write the details on the backs of all those photographs. So as you'll see, this was me in Cabo San Lucas last year, swimming with the dolphins. And you can see in the side panel there, the name at the very top, the image number, what camera took it, that's super cool. And then I put in a description of what the photo was. Donna Bullen swimming with dolphins, on girls' trip to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico on October 31st, 2021. Then I have keywords: Cabo, dolphin, Mexico, swimming, swimming with the dolphin, vacation. So in any of my photo apps, I can look up dolphin and that would pop up right quick. So, and then and then you can see my little face as a button there. So I have a Mac, so we have faces, and it actually then will categorize all of my faces into a file. And so it keeps that. And so I could add other faces as well. And then down at the bottom, it actually is the location. So I put the actual name of the aquarium where we went swimming, and it shows it on a map in Baja California, in Cabo San Lucas. So that's what's super important, and that is all on the get info part of your photo program. So you can drop in and add that information as you want to, and then it's preserved for eternity. So my kids can go, when did mom go swimming with the dolphins? And they can just enter that into a photo program, or enter that in a, like if they've uploaded my photos, they can just swim with dolphins and it'll pull up that image for them years and years down the road. So, so storage options. Now, what do you do with it all? And how do we store it? So most of us don't necessarily have physical copies of photographs anymore, but we have ones that we actually have before we had digital. But so where do we put it? So first, create a file folder for each person for heritage photographs, papers, documents. And I love this tip: file your group photos together, or in the file of the oldest identified person in the photo, or the youngest identified person in the photo. How brilliant is that? Oh my gosh. I could never figure out what to do with the group photos, even going so far as, like my mom did, and made duplicates. So that photo went everywhere in all the photo albums. So, so it's just so much extra work for all of us. So then Maureen reminds us to be super consistent about it. If you choose to file in the oldest identified person, always file that way. So every photo that has a group, or it's a group photo, you're always going to file with the oldest identified person in that file folder. And then that way, everybody can look to, that was what her process was. She filed everything with the oldest, or she filed everything with the youngest. And make sure to include as much metadata as you can. We know for preservation purposes, we want to store in acid and lignin-free folders, boxes, and packing materials, non-PVC sleeves, and to use slide pages, sleeves, or boxes. And so Maureen Taylor, the photo detective, is on all social media, has podcasts, which are really, really smart and brilliant. And her website is maureentaylor.com. So questions or comments? And thanks for letting me recap one of my favorite sessions from Roots Tech 2022.
Thank you, Donette. That was great.
Thank you, Donna.
Let me see.
Didn't
Can
have
I
before.
stop? How do I
I don't want that.
stop sharing? So, I mean, a lot of it was kind of like common sense that I didn't have the same common sense over, you know, it's like, yeah, that makes sense. Why didn't I think of that? So, yeah. So do anybody have any questions? Comments? No?
Good information. I'm actually
Mhm.
working through a process right now. Thank you for the information of creating a website for my families. And I have a lot of photos that I'll be scanning. So this is great high level information, and I'll be looking at Maureen's website to get some more details about how best to scan those photos and put them out on the internet, right, on the website that I'm creating. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And sorry, I didn't ask for your photo release to use our Cabo image on that thing.
Great picture of you all.
Yeah, right. We had a great time.
Good.
So.
Looks like it.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little more information about how to use the meta file?
Yeah, so, okay, so let me go back to share. Share my screen. Well, okay, so. Okay. Screen. Actually, wait, let me see. It says I can share my photos, so I'll just pop into my photos. Okay, there's gonna be a whole bunch of them. So if I, okay, so like if I take this,
We don't see your screen on it.
this is, you don't see my screen yet? Okay,
No.
so, oh, it's time. Okay, so done. Okay, so do you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't, okay, maybe that's, whoops, sorry. Okay, nope, I got to do something different. Let me go here.
Does Maureen
I'm
go
not going to
into
share my
detail,
photos.
Donna, does she go into detail on that in that video link?
Not in that video link, no.
Okay.
So, this is, okay, so so this is like real time, right? You guys see my screen? Okay,
Now we
so
just, oh, there we go.
Yeah, now
there we go. Okay, so what I can do is I'll just tap on this picture of my son and his girlfriend, or well, wife, sorry, and my the baby that was just born. He's in there too. This was at Burn Supper, and so going in here and I'm tapping on the edits or the info screen, the little eye. So
Wait,
I
how-
can
wait, How do
now.
you get to there?
So I'm on a Mac. Are you on a Mac?
No.
Or do you? No. Okay. So it might be edit or under one of your file tabs where it says get info on your in your photo album. So like if you tap on one of your photos and you guys see down in the bottom corner, the bottom left corner, it's got two buttons there in the photo of my son and Michelle. So it actually has recognized their faces already. And so it's already put them in. But so if I tap on the info screen, and I'm on an iPad right now, but in the Photos app, you would tap on, could be edit, but you can add a caption, you can adjust the date and time. So this was actually taken January 22nd, 8:33 p.m. With my, sorry?
Donette, I was just gonna say, I tapped on a photo in my camera, if this is what people are using. So I've got photos in my camera. I tapped on I kind of tapped and scrolled up on one picture. I scrolled up and then it does come up with add a location, showing all photos, adjust. It shows the date and the time that it was taken. So there is information underneath my photo.
Right, yeah.
It's like I've got a photo and then I've got some information that I can sort in there if I
Right.
wanted to. Okay. Anyway, just
So so it might be under I for info, it might be get info if you're on a computer. It might even actually be under the edit part. You can also like
I've looked
again
under
just
edit. I don't see anything there that works. I just don't know
okay.
where you're going. I don't know where you're going to enter this information.
Okay, so I am in, let me look.
Donna, let me
Yeah,
try to help you here.
Does anybody else
Okay.
know?
I'm on a regular laptop. Donna, will you stop your screen share?
uh-huh.
Okay. So I'm in my regular,
Okay.
let's see, right up here, there's an eye at the top of the screen here next to the heart. If you click on that, then it gives the information, which now my pictures are in the way. There we go. The image, I haven't done any metadata. So, but this is my mom, her half sister, me as the baby, and my grandma. You'd be able to enter the information here on the right-hand side of the screen.
Okay, so, just to make it complicated, I don't have that on my screen, so I don't see, I guess that's not gonna happen here.
I think it
Yeah,
depends
it
on where you're
probably-
storing your photos.
I'm using regular PC with Windows 12
Tuck your
or
shoulders
13.
down.
Huh, yeah, that's. I think
It
that's
depends where
12.
you store your photos. Like there's multiple places to store them. I think that's why.
What do you use to bring up your pictures? When you tap on a pic, do you go to your files
I go to
And then-
pictures,
and then tap on the picture?
tip on a file, open the file.
And then is there something with 3 dots on the right-hand side and
Yep.
click
Yep,
on that, click on
Yep.
that. And then there should be something under that. that
file
says fi-
information. I got
Right,
it. Thank
there
you.
you go.
I got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Everybody's computers are
Yay.
just slightly different.
Yeah,
Or
I'm
there's
so glad that,
multiple ways to get there, right? So there's multiple ways to do any one thing on a
Well, I'm on
computer.
my
so-
iPhone,
Sorry.
and when a picture comes up at the very, before, where it asks me if I want to edit or anything, there's an I on the very bottom, information
Mhm.
Yeah.
on my iPhone.
yeah,
It on my phone too, but
Yeah.
it's not an iPhone. This is an Android, but it's at the top right corner.
right. But
Okay.
isn't that cool? I mean, I
Yeah.
was like, okay, this is so cool because we now can actually like write on the back of our photos and have it follow that photograph no matter where it is, no matter where it gets uploaded, no matter how many times we save it to a file or save it to a flash drive or external hard drive, or we send it off to cousins, or that all that information is stored on that photograph and never goes away unless it's, somebody goes in there and deletes it.
Okay, so I
So
I
oh,
looked
sorry.
at file information. I clicked on the file information, the I tab and on my
Mhm.
computer, and what comes up, my options are file name, date taken, and then it tells me size, dimension, shot, ISO, device, folder path, but there's no chance, no place to write in details like you did on your
Oh.
swimming with the dolphin. So this
Oh,
is
there
the
might,
answer.
it might be it might be the photo program that you're using. That might not be, unless there's a way to edit that screen. So maybe
No.
we could talk, maybe we could
Talk
get
offline.
together sometime. Yeah, totally.
I
Sorry
use
for
a file
causing a
name.
problem.
I use a file naming system to name my files that include a lot of that metadata sort of in it. But because sometimes if you share your photo on Facebook, or some programs don't take the metadata with it, all the metadata
right,
that you want. So I'll put my naming system that I used in the chat if anybody's interested.
Okay, any more questions for Donnette?
Thank you, Donnette.
You guys are welcome.
Okay, well then I'm going to move on with my short little presentation, if I can click the right buttons here. Okay. Whoops. Gotta back up. Come on. Cooperate with me, please, computer. Share. Okay. Is that viewing correctly?
Yes.
No, not yet. Okay. So I did a little bit of a review on just some of the different tools and stuff that came out in new releases there for some of the different products. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the new stuff from Ancestry, Family Search, MyHeritage, and DNA Painter. The first one is Ancestry. They've came out to where they've added the relationship tabs when you're in the family view. So it says like my parents, my siblings. You also have the ability on the left-hand side, there's some new little buttons like a a back button, the little button that looks like 2 sheets of paper opens up the tree view options over here, and you can turn off the relationship tabs. You can, view all spouses or not, which to view all spouses, you would look, there's the little bullet point thing like you would see on my dad's picture here. But you're able to toggle that on and off. Let's see. They've also added a photo scanning option, which is actually kind of cool. You can only use it in your app. You have to, basically you want a nice clean space. You put the pictures down, you need good lighting. You can take multiple pictures at once and it will separate them individually and put them into your gallery. And then you can go in and add all the different data for it, like who's in the picture and attach them to people in your tree and so on. They also added a photo line, which will take the pictures from your tree and give you the cluster. So it could be like yourself, your mom, your grandmother, and your great grandmother. And then you're able to share that on different social media sites. They've also added a stories option, which is also in the mobile app, and it just goes in and it uses the data that you've already saved to your tree. It's editable. You can put different pictures in there, and basically it's kind of just like a little slideshow. And then soon they're going to make it to where you can actually share specific records, but that's, in the future and coming. Family search, the biggest thing that they brought out was getting involved. Gives you the opportunity to help transcribe things. Let's see here. They've got some new options, correct names, so you can go through, and we all know that some of our ancestors' last names were not transcribed greatly. You can go in and you can edit that, and that's available both on the web and in the mobile app. They also give you the ability to search for specific names and locations that you want to work on and to improve the indexing. So if you were looking for records in a specific county, you could go in there and just index and work on those specific records. MyHeritage came out with a really neat new feature. It's called Live Story. You can watch, download, share. They have a variety of different voice options. You can add new chapters. Let's see, we'll play this real quick just to give you an idea of what that is.
Brandy, is it making noise?
Oh, can you not hear it?
No.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, there is a little setting sometimes when you share a screen that you have to click, but
I'm not even sure where that would be. I don't know. Okay, well, we'll skip letting it play. So basically with this, it takes photos from your tree. It has your ancestor talk and kind of tell the story based on, like when they were born, who their parents were, who they married, their kids, grandkids, and it kind of just goes through this little life story. A little creepy, but yet it's kind of cool. And then you're able to download it. You're able to upload it to social media sites, send it in emails, and it just kind of gives this little story using your pictures. And you can go in there and edit it. You can pick different voices. It's kind of different. It's a little neat.
If you try just clicking your share screen again, and you'll see one that says share sound. and that should make it able.
Ah, there we go. Okay.
When they married in 1844,
Can you
my
hear that
mother
now?
was 6 years
Yes.
older than my father.
Okay.
I had 5 brothers. My brother Edwin was the eldest. He was born in 1845. Then my brothers Walter in 1846, Daniel in 1848, and Henry in 1858. Finally, my brother John was the youngest. He was born in 1861.
So we won't
Hi,
play the whole
I'm
thing
Rosetta
because
Adelaide.
that'll, take a little while. MyHeritage also has a new tool coming where you'll be able to estimate the date of historical photos that you upload. So that kind of goes along with Donette's presentation, but this, you can upload your photo into MyHeritage, and when the option goes live, and you'll be able to get an estimation of date based on, the photo and what's going on in it. The next thing is DNA Painter.
Brandy,
Oh, yes.
Brandy, this is Julie. I just wanted to say I've used the story deal a lot. You can upload pictures directly from your computer files, and you can also write your own narrative.
See, and that's so fun. I just kind of played with it real quick for the presentation. So I haven't gotten in there and done a lot, but it was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's a great way to get young kids involved.
And the other thing is, so like if it's pronouncing a word wrong, all you have to do is go in and write the word phonetically, and it will say the word correctly. It might take you a couple of tries, but so like I have, my grandmother's last name was Pulaski, but they were saying some weird name, and so I just spelled it phonetically, and the narrative worked. And you can go in and save it. You can keep editing the narrative till you get it to what you want.
That's fun because, we do have a few of those names. Does anybody else have any questions so far? I can't see anybody, but oh, whoops. Let's go. I clicked. Hold on. I need to go back a screen. Sensitive.
So the other thing too with that is also that there's accents. So if your ancestors from, Australia or from, England or whatever, there's a little bit of an accent. So you can actually take some of those old photographs if they're from, Sweden, or if that ancestor's photograph is from Sweden, you can, I don't know if there's a Swedish accent or not, but but if there's one from England, the voice has an English accent. So that's kind of cool too. Although like Brandy says, I think it's creepy because it's like, what? Yeah, when they came out with the living photographs where they kind of like turn their head and blink and smile and stuff like that, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm dying. But I have to tell you that we had a discovery in our family a few years ago of one of my great uncles had a daughter he didn't know about. And through DNA, we found her, and she's 60 some years old. And so she, at 60 some years old, found out that she was not biologically from the dad she thought she was, and she belonged to our family. And she came to our family reunion, met everybody, and we embraced her and everything. Well, I took some of Uncle Good, and we had the genealogy conference where MyHeritage launched that living photograph, and I animated Uncle Glenn's photo for her, and it sent it to her, and that was the first. She said she sat there and just cried and cried and cried, because knowing that how he would have just embraced her and would have loved her whole life, and would have been totally, her dad because of who he was as a person. But for him to like blink at her and smile, she said that was just the most precious gift she'd ever gotten. So I thought it was the creepiest thing ever, but she just thought it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. So so we might think it's creepy, but it might be somebody else's joy. So yeah, so don't hesitate to embrace those new technologies. I'll mute myself again, sorry.
Okay, has anybody ever used DNA Painter? Are any of you familiar with a Watto tree?
I've used both.
And for those that don't know what a Watto tree, it's what are the odds tree. It does a bunch of fancy math and helps you figure out statistically what's the most likely position for you in a group of DNA matches. On this screen, you can see something they've added new to this is for the strongest hypothesis. It's now highlighted here where it says strongest there, kind of in the middle of the screen. And what that means is that's the most likely place that the DNA match would fit. They've also added color. This one is got a lot of color in it. I've been using this to try to solve my second great grandfather's father. We know based on Y-DNA that he's a Hamrick. So all the pink that you can see here, those are all female lines. And then at the very far right, the kind of beige color, those are all DNA matches to the Hamrick line that we've been able to place. And so basically with this, I would suggest a hypothesis, and then I can delete all the ones that come off of anybody that's pink because the father can't be from a female because, you know, they don't carry the Y-DNA. So it's kind of nice now that we can have the color. They also give you the option to drag and drop. So if you put somebody in the wrong place, you can just click and move them to the right place. DNA Painter offers a lot of other features. They have a shared Centimorgan Investigator. It's a tool that takes multiple sets of segments from siblings. So I could, for instance, upload my mom and my uncle's phase DNA, and it would take what they have and kind of project what my grandfather's DNA would be to a specific match, how he would kind of match them. A little bit technical, but they also have a map of clusters. They've added the option of making everybody in that is in a cluster group, you know, like a maternal match or paternal or both. They've got some new options for importing segment data. So you can only select specific chromosomes. So if you only wanted to look at like chromosome 10, you could just upload that specific one and, you know, not have to mess with the rest. Their trees option that they have, you can input manually or you can upload a GEDCOM file, but it gives you the ability to show pedigree collapse if you've got any endogamy in your tree. It will now tell you how many times like a grandparent appears in your tree. So those that, you know, are from endogamous regions, you sometimes might have the same grandparent showing up 3 or 4 times. And so it'll list how many times they showed up. They also give you the ability now to show names and dates when you look at the tree in the pedigree view. They also made this fun tool. It's called Dimensions. So then it'll put your people in like a fan tree, and it'll show you like their age at death or the country of birth, or, you know, different things to break down if you wanted to see. So that's kind of a neat option. And for fun, they threw in the Western and Chinese zodiac signs. In the flyer that I attached to the meeting, there's links if you want to watch the video to get, you know, more in-depth detail on those. So there's some really neat tools out there that are kind of exciting to use. Does anyone have any questions?
No, thank you though. It's something that I need to find some time in my schedule to really explore because there's some really cool information there. Thank you, at least tip of the iceberg, so I can investigate more into a couple of those areas and tools. So thank you, Brandy.
Okay. Sally, are you ready to?
Sure. Okay. 1950 census. Don't know if folks can see my screen. I'll get a slideshow going. Can everybody see that? I hope so. Can
Yep.
you? Okay.
What I see is your
Cover
files.
slide?
It's not the presentation mode. It's
Uh-oh.
in,
It's still in the other mode. Well, let's stop sharing. Let's go back. Let's go to share screen one more time. How's that? Are we back to it, Deborah?
Looks good.
Good.
All right, great. So the exciting thing, and I know at 9:01 on April 1st or on March 31st, 9:01 p.m., I was online checking out the 1950 census since was East Coast time available, right? So just after midnight. So there were different presentations that were provided, and I grabbed a bit from a few different locations, a bit of information. So I'm just going to highlight on a few things. I know Doris and Deborah provided us with some information about enumeration districts a few months ago, so that was so helpful. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but just some highlights about the 1950 census. So geographic areas where the continental United States, but territories, so Alaska and Hawaii weren't states yet, so there were a lot of territories that were covered in this census. So if you had family or if you're researching folks that were in different locations, just know that it was rather broad. There were over, for enumerators and enumeration districts, there were over 140,000 census enumerators that were trained. And this was the first year that they had a very specific training for the enumerators in an effort to obtain more complete and accurate information and consistent information across all the census areas. In addition to the new training program, they also provided some post-enumeration surveys. They were conducted of smaller populations just to ensure the accuracy of some of those of the census areas. I would recommend, I went out and I printed off, but I would recommend going out and looking at the enumerator instructions because you find some very interesting things in there. You can find it at the archives.gov, and it actually will tell you when certain fields were filled in, how they were required to fill in those fields, and what criteria they were to use or what they could or could not put in those fields. So it will help kind of refine information a bit further for you. Also, since the census is not indexed in its entirety as yet, name only search at this point, the enumeration districts are key to try to find people in your family. I have a unique last name, so it's rather easy to find on a general search, but I'm finding that enumeration districts in particular for some of the more common names in my family are very helpful. It is a bit challenging when I wasn't quite sure where some of my family members were living at the time. So going out and looking at city directories or the previous census or those sorts of things to try to find their location at that time was very helpful in that regard. A couple of unique things is this census, they focused on enumerating a moving population and those living abroad, which were two things that hadn't been really focused on previously. So they did T-nights or transient canvasses, 2 different nights. So the census itself, really only occurs over a 2 to 4 week period of time for the enumerators visiting a household. So on Tuesday, April 11th was the first one, and they actually went to locations like hotels or YMCAs, tourist courts and camps, campgrounds, and other places, think about logging camps, mining camps, those sorts of things where individuals may not have been in a set residence. In those locations, they asked the individuals to complete an ICR, individual census report, to be counted in the census, but a lot of people did not complete those. So what they did do in those cases is from the hotel register or register of a YMCA or other location that may have kept registers, they actually took as much information as they could from those registers to enumerate those people in the census. And you'll note on the census that those will be marked with REG, noting that that information came from a register. This was also the first census for Americans living abroad, where they were enumerated. So with the assistance of the Departments of Defense and State, Maritime Administration, and other federal agencies, it was the first time that armed forces, crews on vessels, and U.S. government employees and families living abroad were enumerated. And there are very specific forms for each of these types of enumerations, people living in other locations and or in other territories. So on the first slide there, the various territories, there are different forms in some regard. So it's helpful to go out to the National Archives page and look and see the forms themselves. So that's also another helpful tip that I found, was going out and looking at the detailed reporting. For everyone else that was living abroad, they were asking those family members or neighbors in the United States to actually provide that data. But as we all know, when in any census, if a neighbor or someone next door is providing the information, the data is considered to be poor in nature, and it's not always included or accurate as it may go through. A couple of the other interesting aspects in that the census, when it was created, was the first time infant cards were used, and I think possibly the only time infant cards were used. So infant cards were completed when for children that were born in January, February, or March of 1950. And it included some additional information other than the standard census questions. It included, the mother's maiden name and some additional details. They actually used these infant cards to study an undercount of babies in 2 ways. They found out an estimated how many infants were enumerated but not registered at birth, and conversely, how many infants that were registered at birth who actually had died prior to the actual census in April. So they assisted in providing some infant mortality rates for 1950 or early 1950. Unfortunately, these cards were not, they were deemed as temporary records, and so they have since been destroyed by the Bureau of the Census. The information was compiled and used statistically, but that is as far as that detail goes. The same thing with regard to agriculture, irrigation, and drainage schedules. Those schedules were consolidated, and and provide in statistical reports that are available through the archives. But the records, again, were deemed as temporary, and so we have lost those as well as those records were just. So hopefully, if you're interested in those things, we can look at the statistics of those by state and find some more information there. So those are just some unique elements of the particular census. Let's see if we go to the next slide. So who you will not find in the 1950 census in a particular household. So enumerators were told not to enumerate with the household that they were at, the following individuals, but note that you may find some of these individuals in other areas of the census. So people temporarily visiting a specific household, a foreign citizens visiting embassies or similar facilities, students who board elsewhere, so dormitories of colleges or universities, right, those sorts of things. Domestic workers who did not sleep at that particular residence, you're going to find them at their specific residence, but not in the household where they're working. Household members who were currently inmates of prisons or other institutions. And ship crew members or people living in lighthouses. It's interesting that that was called out in that manner, but they would be on a different census reporting form. So what you will not find on the 1950 census that we would have found on the 1940 census in particular is whether someone owned or rented their home, and if so, how much the value of the home was or what their monthly rent was. You also will not find whether they attended school or college at that point in 1950 or their highest grade completed in school. And you will not find the residents of an earlier date. For example, in the 1940 census, you'll find where were they in 1935. That would have been helpful for me in some regard had I not known, like, for example, where my mother's family was, because they were moving through the 1940s. But I do know where they landed. So it was helpful for the 1950 census that I knew where they eventually ended up. So for accuracy and completeness, like I mentioned previously, they did put this new training in place. And they tried to make it as consistent as possible. They provided enumerators with detailed street maps. I know Doris showed us some of that a few months ago in Portland in particular, and how the EDs or the enumeration districts were laid out. So the enumerators were provided with specific street maps. There was some publishing of missing persons forms in the newspapers, trying to get more people, if an enumerator didn't visit your home, please, complete this information. Here's how to do it or where to go. They set, as we mentioned, the specific nights to conduct the transient or people on the move enumerations, and then the post surveys. They recanvassed a sample of about 3,500 small areas, re-interviewing 22,000 households just to, spot check the initial information. And then they did a series of census campaigns, and some of those, the little photo in the right there was one of the little disclaimers that would come with some of the things in the newspapers and so forth, and letting people know that the FBI and others would not be seeing this information, wouldn't be shared. And it's interesting, there is actually out on archives, there is a pamphlet that shows you all the various campaigns that would have been run in newspapers and so forth. So, but even with all of these and more procedures in place, the Bureau of the Census would later estimate that they undercounted or missed approximately 4.1% of the population. So there still would be some individuals that you may not find. Hopefully everybody that you're looking for is out there, and it is not in the 4.1%, but that is there is that. So how to get involved with the 1950 census? There are some efforts underway that if you're interested in participating in. The National Archives has released the name-only index. Hopefully you've all had an opportunity to get out there, or if you haven't had that yet, hopefully this weekend you're able to do that, or shortly. They're asking for volunteers to help improve the index, so you'll see some information out there as you start looking at it. You can also learn more about that effort at archives.gov 1950 census. And then Ancestry handwriting recognition technology is in process to create a comprehensive index of the census, including all the available fields, so that will be coming. And then I hope, you know, part of Roots Tech, this was mentioned out there, but Family Search has a project underway. So feel free to go out onto Family Search. There is a page about researching, I think one of our previous presentations here, Brandy, you'd mentioned that that they have the, what is it, Getting Involved new link. And so you'll find information about the project out there to help us get as much information as we can out of the census records. And then since I was out online looking at the census records, here is my family, or part of my family. My dad is over in the upper right, and I found him in the 1950 census in the Monmouth area, the greater area. They lived outside the city. My grandparents and some of my dad's siblings and a few of his cousins there in these photos. My dad was the oldest son of 12 children, so not everybody is in these photos. Some had left the house before and some weren't born yet. But it was so much fun to find that. And then my mom's side, my mom was living out in, her family had just moved 2 years before that from California up to the Salt Creek area just outside of Dallas in Polk County here in Oregon. And there's my mom on the lower left, and I find her there on the census. She was 12 years old. It was interesting talking with my mom as I was looking up these things the other night, because she remembered the census taker coming to the house. It was someone that they didn't know, right? And they were asking her mom all these questions. So they found it quite interesting to, the kids were very inquisitive as to what was going on and why was mom telling this stranger all this information. So it was fun listening to her and then talking about the different families on the that were neighbors of theirs as I was reading through the census record with her. So that was fun to find those things there. We also found some interesting stuff regarding some things where her grandmother was actually working and she didn't think her grandmother had been working at that time. So we found some really interesting things that even my mother, who has very sharp memory, had no clue were occurring. You know, she was only 12 at the time, almost 13. But it's fun. So hopefully you all get an opportunity to find some wonderful discoveries of your own out there. Resources for this presentation. So Lisa Louise Cook from Genealogy Gems, she was the one that provided 3 sessions in particular at Roots Tech, but she also has a website that is great to go out and look at. Obviously the census.gov and archives.gov, and then Steve Morse for the enumeration district information, especially right now. Great resource to go out there and find some information. So that is the end of this. All right, let's stop sharing.
Sally, I have a question.
Yes.
Well, how did they calculate the 4.1% missing? How did they even get to that number?
I don't have that information. That was information from the National Archives. And I think they may have that detail out there in more detail on the Census Bureau or the Archives location, but that was I believe there was an additional link on archives.gov. when you go out and look at that detail. There's an additional link to the Census Bureau. So my apologies, I don't have that.
No, that's fine. You just kind of want, you kind of just depend on the census of the population, and then you think, well, how do they know that there's 4% that weren't included? So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One of
Thank you.
the,
Great presentation.
Oh, thank you. One of the interesting things too, I found out, and that's why I started looking at the details of, I didn't have any family members that were on reservations or at sea or anything like that in 1950. But when I started looking at the census forms, it was interesting. So some, for example, Native American census records will say known by another name, right? So it'll give a name that they may also be known by. So there's some unique things when you start looking at those. So if you have family members, or you're researching for someone, or researching someone that may have been in the armed forces or overseas or Native American, those sorts of things, you will find some more unique details on those census records, potentially, or at least you can see the questions that were asked of them.
Thank you.
Anyone else? It was fun. So hopefully you all get a chance. Has anybody, or how many of you have been out to check out the census?
No, but I'm ready. I'm ready to do it.
I found my mom last night.
Oh, wonderful. My dad's side is pretty easy. I had an aunt that was in Los Angeles at the time, and Los Angeles is really tough if you don't know exactly where they lived, and I didn't. But my dad's side, we have a very unique last name, so I was able to put in Los Angeles and type in Nigley, and only a few came up, so I was able to find her pretty quickly. My mom's side has a lot of family down there. Unfortunately, family names are Hart and Allen, with very common first names. So I'm still searching for those in the Los Angeles area.
I'm doing Los Angeles as well. Yeah.
So we have no idea where they were at the time. So it's going to be quite the mystery, and we're going to spend quite a bit of time getting very familiar with the 1950 census. All right, well, good luck. Good luck on all your research, especially in the 1950 census, and hopefully you all find wonderful discoveries out there.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you.
So any other questions for any of us?
Great presentations. Thanks, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
So then just some reminders. Farm Fest is next Saturday, which is April 9th. At the Historical Society. Again, if anybody wants to volunteer to go in and help, there'll be a booth there with us from 10 to 4.
And Brandy, helping entails?
Well, I'm going to presume it's mostly kind of like how Scottish Festival was. Since this kind of got sprung on us really quickly, we have not prepared. But I did go by the library and pick up the American Gothic painting face cutout. So that is here. Answer questions, hand out flyers.
Pin your ancestor on the maps.
Wonderful.
Yeah, see if anybody's interested in some, a free little, what do we do, 15 minutes at Scottish Fest, little session.
Yes.
Or if they want to sign up for some research.
Super.
How long will you guys be out there, or how long will you need help?
From 10 to 4.
Yeah, it's from 10 to 4.
But you could come out for a couple hours, or it's not a Sally and I will be there the whole time. So so you can flow in and flow out however long you want to do.
Okay. I can come and help after I'm done with my church Zoom that I help run in the morning. So maybe 1 to 4 I can come help.
Sure.
Okay,
great.
Yeah, no, that'd be good. I'm gonna pop in the morning some there, but I need to be back here. It's prom, so I I have to do the mom thing.
And I can probably go out for a couple hours. I'm just not sure exactly what day yet, but I can do that too.
That's okay. We'll be
No
there
worries.
Saturday from,
It's only Saturday.
Yeah.
Just Saturday.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
Saturday from 10 to 4.
Oh, I thought it was the Sunday as well. Okay. Okay,
so even if you can't volunteer, but you happen to be out and about, swing by and say hello.
yes, I'll do that. Sounds good.
Yeah, come see the big horses. Those are the coolest.
Oh yeah, 'cause they have
Yeah.
the plow competition. Our next meeting is May 7th, and we will be having the board elections at that meeting.
Okay.
So if there's nothing else, then we are going to take a 10-minute break and then start the business meeting.
All right.
Do we need 10 minutes? Does everybody need 10 minutes?
Maybe 5.
5.
Yeah.
Yeah, go take a, restroom, get a drink, snack.
Well, it feels fuller with the blow dry. And the ends feel better